and welcome back to the show, Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, who joins us in studio after a rather eventful day. What are you guys doing over in the Senate? I mean, in the House of Representatives, it's nutso. And what are y'all doing over there? Just pinochle, bingo? What's going on?
No, we're doing the people's business. Actually, we actually passed the state budget today on the floor. Very excited, and passed unanimously. And I always enjoy seeing that. 33 out of 33 senators voted for the proposed state budget, which I have the honor of sponsoring, and a lot of really, really good stuff in the budget.
You know, I'm going to be accused after my previous two interviews today. I'm going to be accused of being too nice to you, but you know, it goes with the territory because you guys seem to be handling a number of issues that are very important to the people of Tennessee, not the least of which was the transportation bill that was signed by the governor. Right. I want to start here. How excited are you about that? That it is a way to solve some of the issues, some of the transportation issues that we see existing in the state of Tennessee without burdening taxpayers who aren't going to utilize the service.
Exactly. Well, first of all, it's a comprehensive bill dealing with traffic congestion. We know that that's a problem. We have a $26 billion backlog of road projects that need to be done. We have roughly $500 million a year to spend on those projects. So do the math. That's a pretty big hole. And so what we did, the budget we passed today, is we appropriated in non-recurring dollars, one-time money, because we have the money, $3.3 billion to go towards that. And we also passed legislation to expedite the way road projects are done, get rid of some of the bureaucracy, go to a more of a design build model so that these projects can be done. I mean, some of these, if you're talking about a big interstate project, it could be a 15-year timeline. Mm-hmm. We're trying to get that down to maybe 5 or 6 years or 7 years. And these are big projects. So we did that. We did obviously authorize the choice lanes, which will be used in very selective areas where there's really, really high congestion. And that $3.3 billion, 300 million of that will go to local government so they can use it on your county roads and your city roads and that type of thing. And then TDOT, the Department of Transportation, has 4 regions across the state, $750 million per region to jumpstart some of these very expensive projects. So it's a big deal. It's a game changer. We're going to add the people who study this stuff tell us that in the next 20 years, we're going to add 1 million people to the greater Middle Tennessee area. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of people. And so that's a lot more cars on the road. That's a lot more congestion. So it's important that we be taking those steps now.
You mentioned the budget that was passed by the Senate, and you mentioned unanimously. I noted that HB 0104, that's the rape backlog kit bill. It's my understanding it wasn't a part of it. Or it did not make it through. It was dead for the session. Is that correct?
Well, that one particular bill did. There was a bill dealing with the timing of these rape.
A 30-day deal.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Which, by the way, I fully support. But we can pass all the laws we want. If TBI doesn't have the manpower to be able to do it, they're not going to be able to do it. So here's how we did it. And you need to know that last year, in the last fiscal year, we authorized 25 new positions for these analysts that do these rape kits and do the scientific forensic analysis of them. That's about $5 million. This year, we added another 25 positions, about $4.5 million to that as well. And then we also authorized them to draw down some federal grants to be able to outsource to private sector companies that can do the analysis on these rape kits. What TBI is telling us is what we're hearing from everyone. It's very difficult to hire people right now. Mm-hmm. You know, pay is much more competitive. These are very technically specific jobs. You have to have a certain skill set and certain education level. So we've had really lengthy hearings on that. It's a problem, and we've known about this problem for 2 or 3 years now, and we need to work on it. Law enforcement shouldn't have to wait months and months in order to get this mm-hmm. DNA evidence back, especially when it means that there's a potential sexual predator out on the streets. So we're working with TBI. They told us what they need, what they need in order to be able to get these done faster. We've stepped up to the plate and given them the money.
All right, so is it fair, what I just heard you say is instead of setting arbitrary deadlines that TBI will not be able to meet, instead find out what they need to meet said deadlines?
They want to do it faster.
Right.
Trust me, these are not just what you might think would be government bureaucrats sitting around, right, twiddling their thumbs. These are dedicated professionals over at the TBI, and they want to get these done quicker. And so that's how government works. They came to us and said, we've got to have more money to be able to pay more to hire and be able to retain these positions. Because here's what happens in state government oftentimes. Someone will come and work in state government for a few years, get a certain level of experience, and then they get hired away by the private sector and go make a lot more money. And so, and I could go into a lot of detail about the tens and tens of millions of dollars we appropriated to try to retain good quality state employees, and certainly TBI is part of that.
It happens with teachers.
Law enforcement.
And it's my understanding that teachers will see a nice floor level pay salary, and that will be increased for the next several years. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, we're going to raise our base entry level pay for teachers over the next 3 years up to $50,000, and we won't stop there, by the way. And we also appropriated, in addition to the TISA funding that we provided for K-12 education, which is $1.1 billion in new money to go towards public education, we also appropriated $125 million for across-the-board teacher raises. We are better than we were a few years ago in terms of being competitive with regards to states that are around us. You know this, Matt. A lot of people compare us to New York or Massachusetts. Well, those states have a much higher cost of living. They have a state income tax. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other things. So when adjusted for those other cost of living differentials, we look at kind of the Southeast, the states around us, the contiguous states. Can a teacher in Tennessee go down to Alabama and make a lot more money, or to Kentucky? We need to be competitive in that area, and we're getting much more so.
No, it's one of the reasons that you will not find this libertarian, while I might be against in principle things like government funding for a stadium. For example, sure. I also recognize that on balance, we do not have a state income tax, and we very much depend on money coming into the state through tourism, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, you have to balance those.
You have to balance obviously. That. And I want to give you one little tidbit about the budget, and it's kind of hard to explain and unless you do some accounting and ledger sheet, balance sheet. But one of the things, the budget I presented today that I made a special point to emphasize, in this budget that we just passed, we have $2.6 billion in recurring revenue growth that we've experienced as a state that we did not put into the base. We did not recognize that as recurring money. We took it and used it to put money into our rainy day fund, to fully fund our OPEB liability, you know, other post-employment benefits, to fully fund our retirement plan. These are one-time chunks of money we can put in that are going to save us money into the future. But if not one thing changes about our economy, sales tax, revenue growth, anything, if nothing changes, if there's zero growth, when we show up this time next year, we have a $2.6 billion recurring surplus because we did not recognize it this year.
You kind of dig that. That's good.
That's impressive.
One more very specific point on the budget, and I want to get to the concept of red flag laws. So we had Mike Sparks on, Representative Mike Sparks, who was frustrated because he said, and I have not researched this on my own, but I trust Representative Sparks.
Sure.
He said that the bill that he's had in the hopper the last couple of years that's been approved by the legislature to make gun safe sales tax free is not getting through this year. And I said, well, it would seem to me that would be a good move considering that guns are on the minds of a lot of people, gun safety. You know, we have people like Amy Grant and Sheryl Crow were standing in the legislature lobbying you to help us make sure that these guns don't get in the hands of the wrong people.
Right.
And this would seem to be a good incentive. And I know that it's been going on for 2 years. Well, what do you know, if anything, about that?
Representative Sparks is correct. We've done it for the last 2 years, and we decided not to, again, fund that this year. And here's the reason, and I'll explain some things that we did do. We're a sales tax driven state. That's where we get 2/3 of our revenue. And I believe in that. I believe in consumption taxes. I think that is a good way to generate your revenue versus income taxes, property taxes, statewide property taxes, at least, and those types of things. We don't want to begin chipping away and compromising that. When we agreed to do the no sales tax on gun safes a couple of years ago, it was kind of understood that we would do this for a year or two and make a big deal out of it, encourage people, go buy you a gun safe if you don't have one, and get that in. But we don't want to make these types of things permanent. Now, here's what we did do. We put $140 million in for school resource officers in schools. We created a safety grants that schools can draw down from, $40 million for public schools and $14 million for private schools that they can use to harden their facilities and hire school resource officers. So certainly the whole conversation about safety is an important one. But we put, you add it all up, it's almost $35 million that we appropriated towards school safety. So yeah, we did gun safes for a couple of years, and that was good. That was smart. But let's restore that now and let's move on to something else.
And friends can disagree on this, but can you understand why someone like me would feel like maybe that's not the best optics, especially considering the Covenant school shooting? And people asking for they're asking for something.
Sure.
They're looking for something, and a lot of people I think are looking in the wrong places. And I understand what you're saying, but at a price tag of I don't know what the price tag is, so I can't even speak to it. But
I don't recall offhand.
But look, I understand from a sales tax perspective what you're saying, and I get it, and the audience can consume that and kind of figure out where they are on it. Now, look. Since you've been here, I've been distracted. I'm going to tell you why. The folks looking on, hey, Mason, can you see on Super Talk TV? Can you see? Do you color coordinate your pins to your ties? Because
no, I don't. That's clearly an accident. So that's hilarious.
That's pretty impressive.
Jack's got a pretty strong tie game. Don't think that it's gone without notice. I feel like my Hawaiian shirt game's pretty good.
I want to know when I'm going to see you in a tie. I mean, does that ever happen? Is it rare, I suppose?
I regretted. I went to a function at State Capitol, and I regretted not wearing a tie because I was a new guy. But I had a coat. I had a suit on, but I didn't have a tie on.
Most visitors to the Capitol aren't wearing. I wouldn't be wearing one if it wasn't in the rules of the
Look,
General
if I wanted
Assembly,
to be respectable, Jack, my wife would tell you that I would find a razor first, and then I'd work on the tie. We're going to talk about the so-called red flag. You and I haven't had a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Jack was slated to come on my show a day that all what broke loose last week, and I had to move into the afternoon show because of circumstances beyond our control. And so Pamela got to interview you on the day that this little clandestine recording broke. And but I know you. I feel like I understood exactly what you're saying, but I'm going to let you speak for yourself in just a moment and talk about where this concept of order of protection is at 6:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A few more moments with Senator Jack Johnson. Speaking with him about activities going on in the Senate. Boy, it's a snooze fest over there in the Senate. The House of Representatives, that's where everything's happening. No, I kid. I kid because I love. No, you were in the news. Some of your political enemies took out the long knives because somebody recorded a conversation that you had in your, I assume it was in your office. And I assume it was a lengthier conversation about the dynamics of getting legislation passed. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the accusation by your detractors is, Jack's trying to change the language so that he can get red flag laws passed in the state of Tennessee. What do you say to that?
Well, I say look at my record. I look at I've been in the Senate 16 years, going on 17 years now. There have been numerous attempts to pass various variations of a red flag law. I've opposed them consistently. I oppose them now. I oppose what the governor has put forward. Excuse me, you're right. There was 20-something seconds of a 40-plus minute conversation that got into great depth about that. Here's what I always say when people bring up red flag laws or support of those. I say, well, first of all, you need to explain to me what do you mean by that, because that term means different things to different people. I can tell you what I think it means, and I think it means taking your guns without due process, or and not having basically being guilty until you're proven innocent. And that's not how our system works. But I do think we have a mental health issue, and I think there are issues. And I think one consistent theme you will see with these shooters, and we're going to learn more about the individual who committed this horrific act at Covenant as more information becomes public. But almost to an instance, you can determine that those people were suffering from some type of mental health crisis. So it's not about the guns. We don't need to turn to, we got to do something about guns. No, let's do something about people that are suffering from a mental health crisis. And that's what I was telling this individual. And I said, but to me, that is not a red flag. But if you call it that, then it gets labeled that. And
it's DOA.
And it's DOA.
Whether it's worthy or not.
That was the point. So for those who would accuse me of otherwise, again, luckily I've got a record to stand. I'm A+ rated by the NRA and a lifetime member. And so I say, look at my record.
Do you understand where the governor's coming from?
I really, I admire the governor, and he has become a very, very close friend, and he's been a really, really good governor. And I respect his authority and his ability to put forth a proposal. I don't support it. I don't think it's the right answer. And I think we should, and that's why there will be no vote, not just because of me. The support in the General Assembly is not there for what the governor proposed. But
I would note, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I would note, because I know our liberal friends like to listen to the show, that is a reflection of the people that you serve.
Yes.
Right? This is not a decision being made solely by you, because if you make regular decisions, particularly on issues this emotional, against your constituents, you're going to be out on your keister next election,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
So this is a reflection of the people of Tennessee.
And that's the way it works up there. And there are 33 senators. There's 99 House members. Some of my colleagues, even some of my Republican colleagues, support what the governor's put forward. And so, here's what I can say to everyone. Can we at least agree in all this division and rancor and partisanship? Can we all at least agree, and I believe we can, we need to do whatever we can do to help prevent these types of horrendous things from happening. And if we can start there, okay, then let's bring ideas to the table. Let's hash them out. And that's what you're going to see, I think, over the coming days and weeks. And even though we're preparing to adjourn from our General Assembly, the governor can, I don't know if he will, he can call us into special session. That may very well happen. And I'm open to that. We need to continue this conversation. I think probably the majority of my colleagues think we need to focus on getting treatment to people who are in this crisis.
I did a little dive into what Tennessee law says about getting people mental help. Mm-hmm. Forget the guns for a minute. And is it possible that that's an area where we can have a discussion about strengthening some of those laws? I'm not talking necessarily about involuntary incarceration, right, or into a mental institution or whatnot, but it's my understanding that if someone is deemed to be a threat to themselves or to other people, that individuals within their family or even law enforcement can petition a court to help get them some mental help, and can hold them, I think it's 72 hours, in order to get them in a mental evaluation. That having nothing, I don't know if that is enough in and of itself, and maybe we need to focus on that and make people aware that that is available to them as a tool to battle mental illness. Has nothing to do with guns. Has everything to do with the mental incapacity to know right from wrong.
Exactly. And I'll go a step further. Okay, if you support having some kind of system where you disarm or you take the guns away from the person, I would say, well, if someone's in that kind of a serious mental health crisis, let's separate them by getting them help. Getting them treatment. And even if you do support taking their weapon, what's going to stop them from what happened in Wisconsin and they get in their car and they drive through a parade? Let's look at the totality of the problem. And I think it's mental health delivery. It's having ways for loved ones and family members and coworkers and neighbors to be able to get someone who's in this crisis to get them help. It's not about guns. It's about treating the mental health issue.
You mentioned the Double S special session. If that were to come, how does that functionally work in the state of Tennessee? Does the governor call for a specific purpose and then the legislative body comes in to deal with that specific purpose? Is that how it works?
That's correct. So the way it works, the governor issues a call, is what we call it, a call for special session. It's referred to as the call. And in the call, he states specifically what we can talk about or what we can pass legislation regarding. So if he calls for a special session, for example, he called one relative to the Blue Oval City deal. So he called us into special session. And then that way, once you're there, you can't file bills about any subject matter. Now, any member can file a bill on the call, on something that fits within the call, but typically you limit yourself to that particular. And by the way, the General Assembly can call ourselves into special session. That happens rarely, but we did it in October of 21 to stand up to Joe Biden's unconstitutional vaccine mandates, which I was proud of.
Jack, thank you for your time. Thank you for the explanation. Get some action going in the Senate tomorrow, would you?
No,
y'all are about done, right?
We really are. Yeah, the House is working hard today. They've got a busy day tomorrow. We've got a handful of bills remaining that we need to deal with, but I fully suspect the Senate is prepared to adjourn tomorrow, and hopefully the House can catch up to us.
Y'all have to do it at the same time?
Yeah, we have to basically adjourn at the same time, and I think we can. I think the House is hard at it. They might have a bit of a late night tonight and tomorrow night, but we should wrap up.
Well, I like working you guys. I want a special session. I just want you guys to work even harder. That's what we need to get our money's worth out of you.
All right.
Jack, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
There's Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson.